The early summer humidity in New York City felt like it was trying to wring the life out of everyone. Inside the office, the air conditioning was blasting at full capacity, but I could still feel a bead of sweat tracing a path down my neck. It wasn't from the heat, but from a persistent, unsettling feeling that had been gnawing at me all day. My name is David, a project manager for a logistics company, a job that kept me buried in spreadsheets and shipping schedules. The reports usually left me with little time for daydreaming, but today, the numbers on my computer screen kept blurring. My mind kept drifting to the small, old bungalow upstate where my mother, Margaret, was living all by herself. The clock on the wall struck 3 p.m. The rhythmic clatter of keyboards from my colleagues was like a steady rain. Suddenly, my phone buzzed violently on the desk, shattering the afternoon's quiet focus. The screen lit up with the name of our next-door neighbor, Susan. My heart skipped a beat. Susan was a kind soul who lived right next to Mom. She never called me during work hours unless it was an absolute emergency. I snatched the phone, and before I could even say hello, her panicked, breathless voice came through the line. "David, you need to come home right now. Your mother collapsed at the farmer's market." I shot up from my chair, sending it spinning into my desk with a loud bang that made the whole office turn to look. A ringing filled my ears, and all I could hear was the frantic pounding of my own heart. I tried to keep my voice steady. "Susan, slow down. What happened to Mom? Where is she now?" Susan was sobbing, and the sound of wind rushing past the phone told me she was moving quickly. She explained that Mom had been selling her vegetables at her stall, just like any other Saturday. Suddenly, she clutched her head, screamed in agony, and collapsed. She was foaming at the mouth, her body convulsing. The other vendors panicked and called an ambulance, which rushed her to the Upstate Regional Medical Center. "The doctors said it's critical, David," she cried. "You need to get here as fast as you can. You might not get to see her one last time." Those last few words hit me like a bolt of lightning, and my knees buckled. My mother, the woman who had toiled her entire life without a single day of rest, how could this happen to her? My father passed away when I was just a baby, and Mom had raised my 2 older sisters and me all on her own, supported by the meager earnings from her small produce stand. My sisters, Jessica and Amanda, were both married and financially well off, but they rarely visited. I was the youngest, the only son. Even though I worked in the city, I made sure to take the bus home at least once a month to be with her. I grabbed my backpack and ran straight to my boss's office to ask for leave. Seeing the blood drain from my face, he nodded immediately without asking any questions. I bolted out of the company building, hailed the first taxi I saw, and yelled, "Port Authority bus terminal, fast!" Sitting in the cab, watching the endless stream of people rushing by, tears streamed down my face. I remembered Mom's gentle smile every time she met me at the end of our lane. I remembered the taste of her homemade chicken noodle soup and the feel of her calloused, rough hands stroking my hair whenever I was down. She always told me she was strong, that she was fine. "Just focus on your careers," she'd say. And now, she was lying on the fragile line between life and death, and I was still so far away. The bus sped down the highway, leaving the noisy city behind. My stomach was in knots. I wished the bus had wings to fly me straight to her side. The only image in my head was of my mother on a stark white gurney, surrounded by a tangle of tubes and wires. I blamed myself for being careless, for not having given her a single day of complete peace and comfort. My girlfriend Emily texted me after I told her what happened. She urged me to stay calm and said she would take time off work to join me soon. But right then, no words of comfort could quell the rising tide of fear within me. With trembling hands, I dialed the number of my oldest sister, Jessica. The phone rang, each tone sounding hollow and jarring in my ear. Every second that passed felt like torture. I stared at the screen, silently praying for her to pick up. Jessica lived in the next town over, only about 15 miles from Mom's house. She should have been the first to know, the first to be at the hospital. After the 5th ring, someone finally answered. Jessica's voice came through, not with the worry or panic I expected, but loud and boisterous, mixed with the chatter and laughter of a crowd. "Dave, what's with all the calls? I'm swamped right now." I swallowed hard, trying to push down the lump in my throat to speak clearly. "Jessica, Mom had a stroke. She collapsed at the market and is in the ER at the regional hospital. Susan said it's really bad. You need to get to the hospital now. I'm on a bus, but it'll be another 2 hours before I get there. The line went silent for a few seconds. I thought she was in shock, but I was wrong. When Jessica spoke again, her tone had changed, not to one of concern, but of sharp annoyance. What? Another stroke? That old woman is so much trouble. I'm in the middle of closing a deal on a piece of property with Mark. It's a prime lot. If I don't lock it down now, someone else will snatch it. Just tell Susan or someone to handle things for now. I'll try to stop by tonight. I was stunned, unable to believe what I was hearing. Our mother was in the ICU, her life hanging by a thread, and my sister was worried about a real estate deal. Rage erupted inside me. What are you talking about? I yelled into the phone. Mom is in critical condition. You're the eldest daughter, and you care more about a piece of land than her life? Get to the hospital now. Don't you dare lecture me. I have to make money, you know. How are we supposed to live without money? Look, I'm busy. We'll talk tonight. The dial tone buzzed in my ear, cold and final. She had hung up on me. I stared at the phone in my hand, feeling as if I were holding a hot coal. Jessica's cold, cruel words sent a shiver down my spine. She was the firstborn. When we were poor, Mom had sacrificed everything, skipping meals to send her to community college for an accounting degree, scraping together money for her first job placement, and providing a generous dowry when she got married. Now, Jessica was rich, with a big house, fancy cars, and properties all over the county. Yet, when our mother was knocking on death's door, she saw her as an inconvenience, an obstacle to her money-making. I took a deep breath, trying to calm myself, and dialed my other sister, Amanda. She was married to a successful construction company owner in the city and was also very wealthy. I prayed Amanda wouldn't be like Jessica. This time, the phone rang for a long time with no answer. I called 3 times in a row. On the 4th try, a curt text message came back. At a PTA meeting for Kevin. Can't talk. What's up? My hands shaking, I typed out the message, my tears blurring the keyboard. Mom had a brain hemorrhage. She's in the ICU at the regional hospital. Come home immediately. The message was marked as read instantly, but a minute passed, then 2, then 5. There was no reply. I tried calling again, only to be met with a recorded message. The number you have dialed is not available at this time. Amanda had turned off her phone. A feeling of utter loneliness washed over me in the cramped bus. All around me, people were laughing and chatting about their lives, while I sat there, consumed by a pain and disappointment so profound it felt physical. 2 sisters, my own flesh and blood, who shared the same womb and nursed from the same breast, had now turned their backs, shirking their responsibility when our mother needed them the most. I remembered our childhood, the 3 of us huddled around a meager dinner of boiled greens and a small bowl of sauce. Mom always gave us the best parts, eating the burnt rice from the bottom of the pot herself. She taught us to love and protect each other. Family helps family, she'd say. Blood is thicker than water. How bitter those words tasted now. The bus pulled into the station as dusk settled. I jumped in a cab and raced to the hospital. The long driveway was dimly lit by yellow lamps, casting eerie puddles of light on the wet pavement. I prayed for one thing. Mom, please wait for me. I'm here. Please don't leave me. The sharp smell of antiseptic hit me the moment I stepped into the emergency department. The air was thick with tension, the squeal of gurneys, the calls of nurses, the muffled sobs of families. It was a chaotic and terrifying symphony. I rushed to the front desk and gave the nurse my mother's name. She looked at me with pity and pointed toward the intensive care unit. I ran down the hallway and saw Susan huddled on a bench, her face pale and drawn. When she saw me, she burst into tears. "David, you're here! The doctor just called for the family. You need to go in. Quickly." I squeezed her hand in thanks and pushed open the door to the head surgeon's office. Inside, an older doctor with salt and pepper hair was examining a series of X-rays and CT scans on a light box. He saw me, took off his glasses, and his face grew serious. "You're Margaret's son?" "Yes, that's me." "Doctor, how is my mother?" The doctor sighed and pointed to the film. Your mother has suffered a massive brain hemorrhage. The blood clot is putting extreme pressure on her central nervous system. It's very dangerous. We need to perform emergency surgery to open her skull and remove the clot immediately. If we wait even a few more hours, the chances of survival are very low. And even if she lives, she could remain in a vegetative state for the rest of her life. My legs felt like jelly. I grabbed the edge of the desk to keep from collapsing. Then please, operate on her right away. Please, doctor, save my mom. The doctor nodded, but his voice became heavy with concern. We will do everything we can. However, I need to be clear with the family about the costs and risks. This is a highly complex surgery that requires specialized medications and advanced equipment. The total cost for the operation and the subsequent recovery period in the ICU, which we expect to be at least a month, will be around $80,000. The family needs to make a significant down payment so we can procure the necessary medical supplies. $80,000. The number exploded in my head. For a family like mine, or even with my salary in New York, that was a colossal fortune. All my savings, combined with Emily's, had just been enough for a down payment on a small condo we were buying on an installment plan. How could I possibly come up with that much money in such a short time? But looking at the doctor's expectant face and thinking of my mother lying unconscious just outside, I couldn't allow myself to hesitate. My mother's life was priceless. I'll handle it, I said, my voice hoarse. Please, just proceed with the surgery for my mother. I'll go make the payment right away. Leaving the doctor's office, I felt like a ghost. $80,000. I pulled out my phone, my fingers trembling as I redialed Jessica's number. This time, I didn't hope for her to come and help care for Mom. I just hoped she could share the financial burden. She was wealthy. $80,000 couldn't be that difficult for her. The phone rang. After a few tones, she picked up, her voice even more irritated than before. I told you I was busy. Why do you keep calling? Can't you just let me do my work? Jessica, Mom needs emergency surgery. The cost is $80,000. The doctor said if she doesn't have it now, she'll die. Please, can you wire the money to me so I can pay the hospital and save her? The line went dead silent. A terrifying, cold silence. Then Jessica's voice hissed, $80,000? Are you insane? What kind of surgery costs that much? The hospital is scamming you. And let me tell you something. All my money is tied up in real estate right now. I don't have a dime to my name. You're the son. You're the one who will inherit the family house. It's your responsibility to take care of her. I'm married now. I have my own family to worry about. I have no obligation to cover my parents' debts. But this is Mom's life we're talking about. How can you even say that? You're dripping with wealth, and you can't spare a few $100,000 to save your own mother? I don't have it. Stop pressuring me. Click. She hung up. This time, she blocked my number. When I tried to call back, it went straight to a busy signal. Tears of rage and betrayal streamed down my face. I called Amanda. Her phone was still off. She had probably heard the news from Jessica, or she simply wanted to avoid the situation entirely. I stood alone in the cold, sterile hospital corridor. The two sisters my mother had given birth to, the ones she had nurtured for years, had now chosen to turn their backs, choosing money over a mother's love in her darkest hour. I looked at the closed doors of the emergency room where my mother was fading away. I couldn't let her die. Even if I had to sell my soul, I would save her. I only had a few $100s in cash in my wallet. My bank account had about $5,000 in personal savings, a far cry from $80,000. What was I going to do? Suddenly, I thought of Emily and the purchase agreement for the condo we had just signed last week. It was my last hope. I sank onto a waiting room chair, my head in my hands, feeling the weight of the world crushing me. The hallway was silent now, except for the hurried footsteps of the night shift nurses. I took out my phone and looked at my wallpaper, a photo of Emily and me, taken the day we got the keys to our unfurnished condo. Emily's smile was radiant, her eyes sparkling with hope for a happy future. I loved Emily, and I knew she loved me deeply. We had saved for 3 long years, scrimping on every penny, cutting back on everything to save enough for that down payment, in preparation for our wedding at the end of the year. If I told her about this, would she accept it? Or would she leave me? I had no other choice. I couldn't just watch my mother die. I took a deep breath and dialed Emily's number. She picked up before the first ring finished, her voice filled with gentle concern. "Dave, did you get there? How is your mom? I've been so worried I can't sleep." Hearing her warm voice, my eyes stung. I choked back a sob and told her everything. Mom's critical condition and the $80,000 the doctor needed. I didn't hide the fact that my sisters had turned off their phones and refused to help. Emily listened quietly. I could hear her soft sigh over the phone. After a moment, she spoke, her voice firm. "Dave, don't worry. I have $30,000 in a savings account. It was money my parents gave me for our wedding, plus my own savings. Tomorrow morning, I'll go to the bank, withdraw all of it, and send it to you. A person's life is the most important thing. We can figure out the house later." I broke down and cried. This woman, not yet officially my wife, who my mother had never spent a day raising, was willing to give up her entire life savings to help my mom, while her own daughters had fled. "Thank you, Emily," I sobbed. "I owe you my life. But your $30,000 plus my savings still isn't enough. We're still short about $45,000. I hesitated, then decided to voice my crazy idea. "Emily, I was thinking of using our condo purchase agreement as collateral. I know a guy who does high-interest personal loans. He'll take the agreement, but the interest rate will be insane. And if we can't pay it back, we'll lose the condo, lose everything. I'm so sorry, but I can't let Mom die." The other end of the line was silent for a long time. My heart clenched. I knew I was asking for too much. It was the fruit of both our blood, sweat, and tears. But then, Emily's voice came through, soft but full of trust. "Do it. If we lose the house, we can earn money and buy another one. But if you lose your mom, you can never get her back. Do what you think is right. I trust you, and I will be with you to carry this debt." I bit my lip so hard I tasted blood. Having a woman like Emily by my side was the greatest blessing of my life. After hanging up, I immediately called a shady lender I knew about through a business acquaintance. The guy was known for quick, no-questions-asked loans, but his interest rates were predatory. It was 11 p.m., but he answered instantly. After I explained that my collateral was the purchase agreement for a high-end condo in the city, he agreed to lend me $50,000 on the condition that I sign a document effectively selling him the contract if I defaulted on the payments for more than 3 months, with interest calculated daily. I arranged to meet him at the hospital entrance early the next morning. I knew I was walking into a lion's den, that I was gambling away my future and Emily's happiness. But looking towards the ICU where my mother lay fighting for her life, I knew I had made the right decision. The next morning, the lender arrived right on time, flanked by 2 heavily tattooed, menacing-looking thugs. They scrutinized the original contract and my ID. Once satisfied, he threw a stack of cash on the table, along with a loan agreement filled with ruthless terms. I picked up the pen, my hand shaking violently. This signature could plunge my life into a spiral of debt and misery. But the image of my mother filled my mind, urging me on. I closed my eyes and signed my name. Clutching the $50,000 from the loan shark, along with the $30,000 Emily had just wired, I ran like a madman to the administration office to pay the hospital fees. With the receipt in hand, I rushed back to the surgeon, my voice cracking with emotion. "Doctor, I've paid in full. Please, save my mother." The doors to the operating room opened, and my mother was wheeled inside. The in-surgery light glowed an ominous red. The battle for her life had begun. I collapsed onto the cold floor, praying to every god I knew. I had done everything I could. Now, all I could do was wait. The surgery lasted 8 hours. To me, those 8 hours felt like a century. I didn't dare take my eyes off the red light, terrified that if I blinked, the worst would happen. My stomach growled with hunger, but I couldn't swallow a thing. I just drank water to get by. Near dawn, the light went off. The lead surgeon emerged, his forehead glistening with sweat, his green scrubs soaked through. I scrambled to my feet, my legs threatening to give out. "Doctor, my mom." He pulled off his mask, took a deep breath, and gave a slight nod. The surgery was a success. We removed the blood clot and repaired the ruptured vessel. However, she's still in a deep coma and needs to be monitored closely in the ICU. The next 7 days are the most critical. If she wakes up and there are no complications, then we can say she's out of the woods. I wanted to weep with joy. I clasped my hands together and bowed repeatedly to the doctor. My mother was alive. Hope had been rekindled. Mom was moved to the ICU, where family couldn't visit, only peer through a glass window during designated hours. My long vigil in the hospital corridor began. I didn't dare rent a room or go home, afraid I'd miss a doctor's call. During the day, I sat on a hard plastic chair. At night, I spread out a newspaper and curled up under a staircase. My meals consisted of cheap sandwiches or a small carton of rice bought from a vendor outside. The first day passed. Mom lay motionless, surrounded by the steady beeping of ventilators and heart monitors. The second day, then the third. I lost several pounds, a scruffy beard grew on my face, and my eyes were sunken from lack of sleep. Emily called constantly, offering encouragement. She wanted to take leave to come and help, but I insisted she stay and work so we could start tackling the debt. I told her I was enough. Throughout those 7 days and nights, I held onto a sliver of hope that Jessica and Amanda would show up. She was their mother, after all. Could they really be that heartless? Every time I heard heels clicking down the hall or saw a woman of their age approaching, I'd look up, only to be disappointed again. They never came. Not one call, not one text to ask if our mother was dead or alive. Their phones remained unreachable to me. Susan told me that back home, Jessica was still going out to play cards and look at property, while Amanda was posting pictures of herself at fancy restaurants on Facebook, having blocked me so I couldn't see. They were living as if the dying old woman in this hospital didn't exist. The resentment inside me grew, hardening into a heavy stone in my chest. I swore to myself that after this, I would never consider them my sisters again. On the 7th day, I was dozing off on the chair when a hand gently shook my shoulder. I jerked awake to see a nurse standing before me. "David, relative of patient Margaret?" "Yes, that's me." "What's wrong?" The nurse smiled, the most beautiful smile I had seen all week. "Congratulations. Mrs. Margaret is awake. Her vital signs are stable. The doctor has cleared her to be moved to a regular recovery room. You can get her things ready and come see her." I leaped to my feet and let out a whoop of joy, forgetting I was in a hospital. Mom was awake. She had beaten death. All the exhaustion, hunger, and anxiety vanished in an instant. I rushed to buy a thermos, a washcloth, and other necessities to welcome her to the regular ward. When they wheeled her out of the ICU, she was so frail, her head shaved and wrapped in white bandages, but her eyes were open, and they found mine. I took her thin, bony hand, and my tears fell onto her skin. She tried to move her lips, her voice a weak, raspy whisper. "David, you're so thin." That was all she said. But in that moment, all the bitterness, all the crushing weight of the debt I was carrying, suddenly felt lighter. As long as Mom was here, I could face any storm. But the storm wasn't over yet. Just a few hours after Mom had settled into her new room, the sound of clicking high heels and fake, theatrical sobs echoed down the hallway. The door to her room burst open. In walked Jessica and Amanda, their arms laden with bags of expensive fruits, juices, and nutritional supplements. The performance of the filial daughters was about to begin. The door flew open, bringing a draft of cold air from the hallway. Jessica rushed to the bedside like a hurricane, her expensive silk dress rustling with every step. She dropped to her knees, grabbed Mom's hand, and began to wail. Her cries were so loud they made the other patients in the room turn and stare. "Oh, Mom, how could this happen to you? You're breaking my heart." When I heard you collapsed, my whole body went numb. I rushed here as fast as I could, my heart burning with worry. "Do you recognize me, Mom?" "It's me. You're Jessica." I stood frozen in the corner of the room, still holding the damp washcloth I'd been using to clean Mom's face. Watching Jessica's performance, a bitter taste rose in my throat, not of emotion, but of pure disgust. Just days ago, this same woman had coldly told me to handle it myself because she was busy with a real estate deal. Now, in front of doctors and strangers, she had transformed into the most devoted daughter on earth. Amanda followed close behind. She was dressed more modestly, but her perfectly made-up face couldn't hide her indifference. She sniffled, dabbing at her dry eyes with a tissue, then turned to me with a look of reproach. "David, why didn't you tell us sooner that Mom was this sick? We tried calling you, but we couldn't get through. My poor mother, lying here all alone without her daughters. My son Kevin has had a high fever for days, and my husband, Robert, is out of town on business. I was all alone with 2 kids and couldn't get away. The second I could leave them with their grandmother, I rushed right over." I looked Amanda straight in the eye, my gaze so sharp it made her flinch and look away. My voice was low, an attempt to keep the peace in the hospital room, but every word was laced with sarcasm. "I called both of you hundreds of times from the moment Mom was admitted. Jessica was busy buying land, and Amanda was busy at a PTA meeting. Then you both turned off your phones and blocked my number. Now that Mom is past the critical stage, you show up to cry? For the past 7 days, I've been awake right here. When Mom needed someone to sign the life or death surgery consent forms, where were you?" Jessica's crying stopped instantly. She shot up, her eyes glaring at me. "What's that supposed to mean, David? I'm your older sister. I have my own responsibilities. You think my life is easy? I have to make money too. I'm not just sitting around doing nothing. Anyway, let's talk about that later. How is Mom? What did the doctor say?" I tossed the washcloth into the basin with a splash. Mom had a brain hemorrhage. They operated to remove the blood clot. The doctor said we were lucky we acted fast. A little longer and she would have been gone. The surgery and ICU stay cost $80,000. I've already paid it in full. Hearing the sum of $80,000, Amanda's face went pale and Jessica's jaw dropped. But as soon as they heard the words, "I've already paid it in full," they both let out a visible sigh of relief, their expressions relaxing noticeably. Jessica stood up, brushing off her knees. Her tone changed completely, becoming light and falsely cheerful. "See? I knew David could handle it. You work in New York City. You have connections, a high salary. This kind of thing is no problem for you. I told Amanda to just trust you. Well, as long as the money is taken care of, that's what matters. The most important thing is that Mom gets better. Health is wealth, right?" Amanda chimed in, nodding eagerly. "That's right. David is the son. He'll inherit the family home and carry on the name, so it's only right that he takes on this responsibility for Mom. We girls get married and belong to another family. We help where we can, but we can't handle big things like you can." I clenched my fists so tight my nails dug into my palms. My $80,000 was from a loan shark, from mortgaging my and Emily's entire future. And in their eyes, it was a trivial matter. They didn't ask where I got the money, didn't ask about the debt. All they cared about was that they didn't have to spend a single cent. On the bed, Mom's tired eyes watched her 2 daughters. 2 silent tears streamed down her temples and onto the pillow. She couldn't speak much, but I knew she heard everything, understood everything. The pain in her heart must have been worse than the wound on her head. That afternoon, the atmosphere in the room was suffocating. Jessica and Amanda stayed for about 2 hours, fidgeting the entire time. Jessica kept checking her watch, while Amanda stepped out every 5 minutes to take a call. Their presence was clearly just for show, their minds already elsewhere. As the afternoon sun began to fade, Jessica stood up, adjusted her dress, and cleared her throat. "Mom, I have to go. I have a client coming to see a house, and I can't miss it. You just rest and get well. With David here taking care of you, I have nothing to worry about. I'll come visit again when I have time." Mom gave a faint nod, her eyes filled with sorrow as she watched her eldest daughter. She said nothing. Perhaps she expected nothing more. Jessica turned to me and pulled a thin envelope from her designer handbag, stuffing it into my hand. "Here, David. Things are a bit tight for me right now. All my cash is tied up in property, and my husband and kids are expensive. This is $500. It's not much, but it's a little something from me to help with Mom's food and things. You take it. If you need more, you'll have to figure it out. This is all I can do. $500. Compared to the $80,000 debt I was carrying, it was a drop in the ocean, not even enough to cover one day's interest from the loan shark. I held the envelope, feeling its lightness, yet it weighed on me with a profound bitterness. She was one of the wealthiest people in our town, driving a luxury car, yet this was all she could offer her mother in her time of need. Seeing Jessica give money, Amanda quickly opened her wallet. She pulled out a few $100 bills, crumpled them up, and shoved them into my other hand. "I'll give you $300 to buy some oranges for Mom. You know my situation. My husband may be a director, but he controls all the money. I barely see any of it. And with 2 kids in school, expenses are high. It's the thought that counts. You're our brother, so please understand." I looked at the $300 in my hand, then at Amanda's shameless face. $800 for a human life, for the woman who brought them into this world. I wanted to throw the charity back in their faces, to scream that I was now shouldering a debt close to $100,000. But then I looked at my mother, lying on the bed, her breathing still shallow. I swallowed my anger. I didn't want to shock her again. I forced a twisted smile. "Wow, thank you both. You're so thoughtful. This is a lot of money. It'll probably buy Mom soup for a whole month. You two should get going before it gets late. Your multi-million-dollar deals are waiting. No need to waste your precious time here." Jessica either didn't notice the sarcasm or chose to ignore it. She patted my shoulder. "It's good that you're so understanding. Well, I'm off. Bye, Mom." The two of them turned and walked out, the sound of their heels clicking down the hallway until it faded. I stood there, clenching the 2 envelopes until they were wrinkled messes. $800. Was this the price of family? I went back to the bed and saw Mom staring at me. She gestured for me to come closer. I sat down and took her hand. She whispered, her voice broken but clear. "David, the money. Where did you get so much?" I flinched. I had tried to hide the loan from her. I quickly invented a story. "Don't worry, Mom. It's money I saved up, plus I borrowed a bit from some friends. They're good friends, no interest. They said I can pay them back whenever I can. Just focus on getting better." Mom looked at me, her eyes filled with doubt, but she was too tired to ask more. She closed her eyes, a single tear rolling from the corner of her wrinkled eye onto the pillow. I knew she didn't believe me, but she was helpless. I gently wiped her tear away, silently vowing to carry this burden, to protect her from any more pain, even if it cost me everything. The next morning, Emily took a bus from New York to visit. The moment she saw me, she burst into tears. I must have looked like a beggar unshaven, my face gaunt, my clothes wrinkled. She threw her arms around me, sobbing. "David, you look awful. Why didn't you let me come sooner? How can you bear all this alone?" I patted her back gently, inhaling the familiar scent of her hair to find a moment of peace. "I'm okay. Now that you're here, I feel stronger. Mom's sleeping. Go in and see her for a bit." Emily tiptoed into the room, sat by the bed holding Mom's hand for a while, then came out and pulled me into the hallway. Her face was etched with worry. She took out a small notebook filled with numbers. "David, I've done the math. The interest rate from that lender is terrifying. Every day, the interest is compounding. At this rate, in just 3 months, the debt will be more than the value of our condo. If we can't pay back the principal soon, they will seize the property. It's our dream home, everything we worked for. I'm so scared." I looked at the numbers she had written, and my head spun. I knew how ruthless these lenders were, but at the time, I had no other choice. "I know, Emily. My plan is, once Mom is discharged, I'll ask for a salary advance and find a second job at night. I'll work myself to the bone to cover the daily interest, and we can figure out the principal later." Emily shook her head, her eyes welling up with tears. "How can we possibly keep up? Our salaries combined, after living expenses, are just enough to pay the interest. When will we ever pay off the principal? And when you told me Jessica and Amanda only gave you a few $100s, I was furious for you. They're so rich, and they're her own daughters. How can they be so cruel? I want to go talk to them. Demand that they take on at least half of this debt with you." I quickly took her hand to stop her. "No, Emily, don't. I know what my sisters are like. If you go to them now, they'll just scream that the gold-digging fiancé is already trying to claim family assets and blame me for putting you up to it. If Mom finds out, the shock could kill her. She just came back from the brink of death. I don't want her to worry about another thing." "But David, we'll be ruined. We'll lose our home, our future. What will we have left? How will we get married?" "I don't regret the money we used to save her, but I can't stand by and watch you carry this debt alone while those two live in luxury. Where is the justice in that?" I pulled her into my arms, feeling her small shoulders tremble. I knew she was right. The injustice was immense. But I was the man. I couldn't let the woman I loved stand on the front lines. "Trust me, okay? I promise I won't let us lose our home. I'll find a way. Once Mom is fully recovered, I'll call a family meeting and lay everything out for my sisters. But for now, Mom's health is the #1 priority. Please, just bear with me a little longer." Emily looked up at me, her eyes red but filled with determination. She nodded. "I'll listen to you. I chose you, and I'll stand by you through thick and thin. But you have to promise me you won't hide anything from me anymore. We'll pay this debt together, and we'll face this hardship together." Her words were like a shot of adrenaline, strengthening my resolve. We sat together in the hospital corridor, hand in hand. The sun was still shining outside, but the storm in my heart had calmed, thanks to Emily. Still, the fear of the enormous debt and the approaching payment deadlines loomed over me like a dark cloud, ready to burst at any moment. A month later, my mother was discharged from the hospital. Her recovery was miraculous. Although she was still weak and needed a cane to walk, her mind was sharp again. The day she was to come home, Jessica and Amanda eagerly called to announce they were hosting a grand family reunion dinner at Mom's house to celebrate her recovery. I drove Mom home in my old car. As we approached the gate, I saw 2 shiny, expensive cars belonging to my sisters parked brazenly in the yard. Inside, the house was filled with loud laughter and the delicious aroma of food. To an outsider, we would have looked like a happy, prosperous, and devoted family. Only I knew that behind this beautiful facade lay deep, festering wounds and a nauseating hypocrisy. I helped Mom into the house. My 2 brothers-in-law rushed out to help, their faces plastered with wide smiles. "Welcome home, Mom. You look wonderful. Our family is truly blessed. Come, rest. We've prepared everything." Jessica and Amanda emerged from the kitchen, carrying platters laden with roasted chicken, fried spring rolls, and steamed shrimp. Jessica cooed, "Sit down, Mom. I ordered all your favorite dishes. We have to celebrate big today. David, where are you? Come sit next to Mom." The dinner began in a boisterous atmosphere. My brothers-in-law poured wine and made toasts. Jessica's husband, Mark, slapped me on the back. "David, you've had it the toughest. We were all so busy we couldn't help out. Thank God we had you to take care of everything. You're a model of a devoted son. Come on, let's toast to Mom's health and to you for completing your mission so successfully." I held the wine glass, my hand trembling with rage. Completing my mission? They saw caring for our mother, shouldering a crippling debt to save her life, as a task assigned to me. I drained the bitter wine in one gulp, saying nothing. Amanda, while placing a piece of chicken in Mom's bowl, chattered on, "See, Mom? Having so many children is the best thing, isn't it? As long as you stay healthy and live to be 100, we'll all be happy. David has already taken care of the hospital bills, so you don't have to worry about a thing. He's so capable, he can handle anything." I saw my mother stop chewing and put her bowl down. She looked around the table, at the cheerful faces of her daughters and sons-in-law, and then at me. My head bowed low. Her eyes darkened. She picked up her chopsticks and tapped them sharply on the table 3 times. Clack, clack, clack. The sharp sound silenced the entire table. Everyone stared at her, bewildered. Mark, who was about to take another drink, put his glass down. "What's wrong, Mom? Is the food not to your liking?" Jessica asked, a hint of panic in her voice. Margaret took a deep breath, her back straightening. Her gaze swept over each person, sharp and stern in a way I had never seen before. "Everyone be quiet. Don't touch another bite. I have something important to say, right now." The atmosphere grew heavy, thick as lead. I could feel a storm brewing. Margaret looked directly at Jessica and Amanda, her voice low but powerful. "Are you celebrating that I'm alive, or are you celebrating that you didn't have to spend a penny on this old life of mine? You praise David for being so devoted and capable, but did any of you ask him where he got $80,000 to save me? Or do you think he just found it on the street?" My sisters were speechless, their faces paling. Amanda stammered, trying to make an excuse, but was silenced by Mom's glare. No one interrupts me. "Today, at this table, I will settle everything." My mother slowly reached into the pocket of her simple blouse and pulled out a slightly yellowed manila envelope. She opened it and withdrew a document bearing an official red seal from a notary public. She placed the paper in the middle of the table, right next to the golden roasted chicken. "This is the will I had drawn up at a lawyer's office 2 years ago, when I was still healthy and of sound mind. I intended for it to be revealed only after I passed away. But after what just happened, I feel I must make it clear now, to prevent you all from tearing each other apart later." Jessica leaned forward, her eyes glued to the paper, her voice strained. "A will? What will? You're alive and well. Why would you make a will? What are you dividing up?" My mother didn't answer her directly. She began to read the will aloud, her voice steady and clear. "I, Margaret Miller, being the legal owner of the house and the half-acre of land at this address, along with a savings account containing $30,000 at the Agricultural Bank, do hereby bequeath my entire estate, including the land, house, and the aforementioned savings, to my youngest son, David Miller, to own and dispose of as he sees fit. My 2 daughters, Jessica Collins and Amanda Brooks, shall receive no portion of this estate." As she finished, the room exploded. Jessica shot to her feet, knocking her chair over with a crash. She slammed her hand on the table, her voice a piercing shriek. "What did you say? You're leaving everything to David? Are you crazy? I'm your daughter too. How can you be so unfair? This house is the family home. It's worth a fortune now. How can you let him have it all?" "I don't agree. Absolutely not." Amanda also lost her composure, bursting into theatrical sobs, tears and snot running down her face. "Oh God, I can't believe you favor your son this much. I married into a difficult family, hoping for a little something from you to give me some standing with my in-laws, and now you've just cast us aside. How can anyone accept this? David put you up to this, didn't he? He must have taken advantage of you when you were sick and forced you to sign." My 2 brothers-in-law joined in, their faces red. "Mom, this isn't right. It will destroy the family. Parents' assets should be divided equally among all children. David is the son, so maybe he gets a little more, but taking everything is just too greedy." I sat like a statue. I was as stunned as they were. I never knew Mom had a will, let alone one that left everything to me. I looked at my mother and saw her sitting there, as immovable as a mountain against the hurricane of greed. Margaret waited for the clamor to die down, then smirked. "You call me unfair? You accuse me of favoring my son? Fine. Today, I'll show you what fairness is." She pointed at the will. "I signed this 2 years ago. David knew nothing about it. And as for fairness, let's take a walk down memory lane. When Jessica got married, I sold an acre of our best land to give her a nest egg. When Amanda got married, I gave her a large sum of money and spent a fortune to get her a good job. And what has David gotten from me? He worked his way through college, built his career from scratch, and even saved for his own home. I haven't given him a single thing of value." Jessica shot back. "Why are you bringing up the past? We spent that money ages ago. Land prices have skyrocketed since then. This house is worth 100 times more than those old gifts. How can you even compare?" My mother slammed her hand on the table again, her eyes blazing with fury. "All right. If you want to talk about current value, let's talk about the present. The $80,000 David borrowed from a loan shark to save my life. The interest is piling up on his head as we speak. You 2 are so rich. Did you contribute a single cent? Or did you just toss a few $100s at him and wash your hands of it?" The room fell silent. Jessica and Amanda were speechless, their eyes darting around. My mother continued, her voice like steel. "I am giving this property to David so he can sell it or mortgage it to pay back the money he borrowed to save me. He saved my life, so I am repaying him with my assets. That is the fairest transaction in the world. You didn't pay to save your mother, so don't expect to inherit from her. Anyone who dares to complain or sue can get out of my house right now. I will consider myself to have never had such a child. The room was frozen in the aftermath of my mother's declaration. Jessica and Amanda stared at each other, their faces cycling through shades of red and white with rage. The tension was so thick I could hear my own heart pounding in my chest. I knew my sisters well. They would never accept this. To them, money and property had always been more important than any human connection. Jessica was the first to break the silence. She stood up abruptly and pointed a trembling finger at me, her eyes burning with a rage that looked like it could devour me whole. "You're clever, David. I never knew you were so devious. You took advantage of Mom when she was hospitalized and her mind wasn't clear, filling her head with lies. You forced her to sign that will. You tricked her into giving you everything, didn't you? I'm going to sue you for fraud and elder abuse." Amanda, not to be outdone, wiped away her fake tears, her face contorted with bitterness. "That's right. Mom is old, and she just had brain surgery. Her mind is obviously not stable. That's why he was able to manipulate her. There's no way our mother would ever treat her own daughters so cruelly. We are her flesh and blood. David, don't think you can get away with this. We won't let you swallow this house so easily." I remained silent, my hands clenched under the table. Arguing was pointless. Greed had blinded them. But my mother was a different story. She sat there, back straight, looking at her two daughters with an expression of profound disappointment and pain. She showed no signs of the confusion or weakness they accused her of. "Are you two finished?" Her voice, cold and sharp, cut through their tirade. She stared at Jessica, then Amanda, her gaze so piercing it made them fall silent. "You say I'm senile. You say David is a con artist. Then let me ask you a question. When I was lying on that cold operating table and the doctors needed a signature on a life-or-death waiver, where were you? Why did David call you until his phone died and neither of you answered?" Jessica stammered, avoiding our mother's eyes. "Well, I was busy closing a deal. It was a multi-million-dollar transaction. I couldn't just walk away. Besides, my phone died. I didn't know it was that serious." Amanda quickly added her own defense. "And I was at a PTA meeting for Kevin. The teacher forbids phone use during the meeting, so I had it turned off. If I had known you were in the ER, I would have run over immediately. Don't blame us unfairly." My mother let out a bitter, hollow laugh. Such wonderful excuses. One was busy making money, the other was busy with her child. No one is at fault, except for me. I was wrong to get sick at such an inconvenient time, to become a burden to you both. But do you have any idea how thin the line between life and death is? If David hadn't risked everything, taken out that predatory loan, and put up his future as collateral to pay that $80,000, you would be here today for my funeral, not for a welcome home dinner. She slammed her water glass down on the table, splashing water everywhere. You open your mouths and demand fairness, demand your rights. But when responsibility comes knocking, you run and hide. David is carrying this family's debt. He saved my life. Therefore, it is only natural that I give him my assets so he can pay it back. You contributed nothing, not a cent, not an ounce of effort. What right do you have to demand a share? That's the naked truth, and no amount of whining will change your greedy nature." Her words were like slaps across their faces. The room grew heavy again. My brothers-in-law stared at their plates, not daring to utter a word. The truth was laid bare, raw, and painful, and undeniable. But I knew that insatiable greed would not give up so easily. Jessica, still refusing to back down, desperately clung to a twisted line of reasoning. "That's a cruel thing to say, Mom. I used to send you money when I first started working. Have you forgotten? And that $80,000, who's to say David really borrowed that much? Maybe he's lying about the amount to trick you. Maybe the bill was only $20,000 or $30,000, and he inflated the number so he could take the house." At that, my patience snapped. I was about to leap up and shut down her vile accusation when Mom held up a hand, signaling for me to stay put. She rose slowly and shuffled into her bedroom. A moment later, she returned, holding a rusty, old metal cookie tin. The paint was peeling, revealing the metal underneath. "This was your father's," she said softly. "I've kept it for 20 years, never daring to open it because the pain was too much. But today, To silence the bottomless greed of my own daughters, I have no choice." She placed the tin on the table and carefully lifted the lid. Inside were yellowed papers and worn-out notebooks, neatly arranged. She took out an old envelope. The handwriting was faded, but the words "to my wife and children" were still legible. She handed the letter to Mark, Jessica's husband. "Mark, you're an outsider. Read this letter aloud for everyone to hear. Read every word so your wife can finally see the truth." Mark took the letter, glanced at his wife, and began to read, his voice low and somber. "My dearest Margaret, I know my time is short. When I'm gone, the burden of our family will fall on your shoulders. I love you and the children so much. We are poor, with nothing but a few acres of land and this broken-down house. All the money we ever saved went to sending Jessica to college, hoping she could have a better life. When Amanda grows up, try to provide for her just as well. I worry most about David. As the youngest and the only son, he should be cared for the most, but I fear he will have the least. After I'm gone, if things get better, please make it up to him, so he doesn't feel left behind. And please, remind the children to always love and support one another." As he finished, Mark's voice choked up. Jessica stared at the floor, fiddling with the hem of her dress. Amanda turned away, secretly wiping a tear. Their father's words from 2 decades ago had come back to life, perhaps stirring a flicker of conscience within them. But Mom wasn't finished. She pulled out the old notebooks, filled with meticulous records. "This is my expense ledger for the last 30 years. Every dollar I spent on you, I wrote it down. 1,998. Getting Jessica a government job cost 5 gold coins. 2005, Amanda's wedding, dowry and furnishings totaled 3 gold coins and $5,000 cash." She flipped through the pages, pointing to specific entries. "I sold our land, our fields, to give you stable careers and comfortable lives with your husbands. I fulfilled my duty as a mother. As for David, since his father died, he has worked odd jobs to pay for his own schooling and built his life on his own. The assets I have now were, in truth, saved to fulfill your father's dying wish, to provide for David. And now you have the gall to come here and demand a share? Haven't you taken enough from me?" Jessica lifted her head, her face flushed, still trying to argue. "That was then. This is now. Money devalues. Land is what matters now. This house is worth a fortune. If you give it all to David, we're the ones being cheated." My mother slammed the lid of the tin shut with a loud, metallic clang. "Enough! I will not hear another word of your excuses. Fairness lies in a person's conscience, not in a calculator. And if your conscience has been eaten by dogs, then there is nothing more to say." The tension at the dinner table was at its peak. The delicious food was now cold and untouched. My mother leaned back, her expression firm but tinged with exhaustion. She had poured out her heart to reason with the daughters she once cherished, only to be met with cold calculation. Margaret looked from Jessica to Amanda, her voice low but carrying the weight of a final judgment. "Let me make this perfectly clear, once and for all. The $80,000 David borrowed to save my life is his debt on paper, but in reality, it is my debt. As long as I am alive, I have a responsibility to pay it back. Since I don't have the cash, I am using this house and land to repay him. Consider it a sale. I sold my house to my son to pay for my medical care. It's a fair transaction. No one owes anyone anything." Jessica jumped up as if she'd been scalded. "You're just trying to force our hand. Selling the house to him by giving it to him in a will? That's just handing it to him on a silver platter. That $80,000 debt is his problem. Why are you dragging the family inheritance into it?" My mother scoffed, her eyes flashing. "Fine. If you feel it's so unfair, Jessica, here is your chance to prove your devotion. You pay back the $80,000 for David right now, plus the interest that's accumulated over the past month. If you pay that amount in full, I will tear up this will this instant and divide the house equally among the 3 of you. Do you dare?" Her challenge left Jessica speechless. She stammered, her eyes darting around like a cornered animal. Coming up with nearly $100,000 in cash was impossible for her, especially after claiming all her money was tied up in property. Besides, with her stingy nature, she would never pay off someone else's debt, even if it was to save her own mother. "Why are you so quiet?" my mother pressed. "You want the inheritance, but you don't want the responsibility. You can't have it both ways, Jessica. The world doesn't work like that." Amanda, seeing her sister trapped, tried to intervene, but her voice was weak. "Mom, $80,000 is not a small amount. You can't expect Jessica to come up with it all at once. What we mean is, you should just divide the house 3 ways. Then, when it's sold, David can use his share to pay his debt. If you give it all to him, we're left with nothing." My mother shook her head in disgust. "By the time you sell the house and divide the money, the interest will have skyrocketed. David could sell a kidney and still not pay it off. I've said my piece. You contributed nothing, you get nothing. My decision is final. This will is legally binding. From this moment on, this house belongs to David. If you come here as guests, you are welcome. If you come here to demand what isn't yours, you can leave." She waved her hand dismissively, gesturing toward the door. Furious, Jessica stood up and kicked her chair over. "Fine. If you're going to be so heartless, then don't blame me for being disrespectful. I won't let this go. I will see you in court. I will fight this to the end to get what is rightfully mine. Let's go." She grabbed her husband's arm and dragged him towards the door. Mark looked at my mother and me apologetically, mumbled a goodbye, and hurried after his wife. Amanda, seeing her sister leave, snatched her purse, shot me a venomous look, and sneered, "Just you wait, David. Don't think you can get away with this." The 2 families stormed out. The car doors slammed shut like thunderclaps. The cars sped away, leaving behind a cloud of dust and a terrifying silence in the small house. I looked at my mother. Her shoulders were shaking. She buried her face in her hands, and choked sobs escaped her lips. She had won the argument, but a mother's heart had been shattered. I gently put my arm around her, my own heart aching. I thought that after that fateful dinner, my sisters would have the decency to back down, but I had severely underestimated their greed. 3 days later, the head of our neighborhood watch came to our door, holding a formal notice. He looked uncomfortable. "David, I'm so sorry." Jessica and Amanda filed a formal complaint with the town council. They're accusing you of imprisoning your elderly mother and taking advantage of her diminished mental capacity to force her to sign an illegal will. They're even claiming you're abusing her, not letting them see her. I took the notice, my hand trembling with fury. Imprisoning? Abusing? How could they invent such disgusting lies? My mother, hearing this from her bed, stopped crying. Her face hardened, her eyes burning with resolve. "Fine. They want to drag me out and make a public spectacle? I'll give them one. You can go. Tell them we will be at the community center tomorrow at 2 p.m. sharp. We'll see who is the one to be shamed." The next afternoon, the community center was packed. Rumors of our family feud had spread like wildfire. Curious neighbors filled the seats, whispering amongst themselves. Jessica and Amanda were already there, sitting proudly in the front row, looking victorious. They had brought their husbands and a few distant relatives to act as a cheering section. When I helped my mother into the hall, all eyes turned to us. She walked slowly, leaning on her cane, but her head was held high. I helped her to a seat directly opposite my sisters. The moderator cleared his throat and began. "We are gathered today to mediate a complaint filed by Miss Jessica Collins and Miss Amanda Brooks regarding the division of assets and the care of Mrs. Margaret Miller. Miss Collins, you may begin." Jessica stood up, her performance more convincing than a professional actress. She sniffled and cried, claiming she loved her mother dearly and wanted to take her home to care for her, but I had forbidden it. She accused me of poisoning our mother's mind against her own daughters. "My mother just had brain surgery," she wailed. "Her mind isn't right. She's forgetful. David took advantage of her vulnerability and forced her to sign everything over to him. This is immoral and illegal. We demand that the will be nullified and the assets divided equally by law. We also demand the right to bring our mother home to care for her properly," the crowd murmured. Some nodded in sympathy with Jessica, others looked skeptical. Amanda then stood up and added to the story, painting me as a greedy, abusive monster. I sat there, blood rushing to my head, about to jump up and fight back, when my mother's frail hand rested on mine, holding me down. She signaled me to be quiet. Slowly, my mother stood up and walked to the podium. She looked around the room, her eyes lingering on old, familiar neighbors, before finally settling on her two shameless daughters. She stood in the middle of the room, her small, frail frame radiating an incredible power that silenced the entire hall. She didn't need the microphone. Her voice, clear and strong, rang out, dispelling any notion that she was confused or mentally unstable. My dear neighbors, my friends, I am not here today to fight over property. I am here to expose the true faces of the children I brought into this world. She pointed a finger directly at Jessica and Amanda. You say David has imprisoned me, that I was forced. Let me ask you, and everyone here, during the entire month I lay in the hospital, on the verge of death, who was by my side 24/7? Who changed my bedpans, cleaned me, and fed me every spoonful of soup? It was David. And you, she said, her voice dripping with contempt. My devoted, crying daughters. How many times did you visit, and for how many minutes each time? Jessica tried to object, but my mother roared, Silence! I did not give you permission to speak. Do you all know? When the doctor needed $80,000 for the emergency surgery that saved my life, my two wealthy daughters turned off their phones and ran. David, all alone, had to go to a loan shark, mortgaging the home he was about to build with his fiancée just to save me. Without him, the grass on my grave would be green by now. A collective gasp went through the hall. Angry eyes turned towards Jessica and Amanda. They stared at the floor, unable to meet anyone's gaze. My mother continued, her voice trembling with emotion, but unwavering in its resolve. You are afraid of losing a piece of land, so you invent lies to slander your own brother. Let me tell you, this is my property. I have the right to give it to whomever I choose. What law forbids me from giving it to the person who saved my life? You gave no effort, no money, and now you want the reward? Have you no shame? With that, she pulled a bank book and a stack of cash from her pocket, holding them up for all to see. This is my life savings, $30,000. Today, in front of the community and town officials, I am withdrawing every cent and giving it to my son, David Miller. She turned to me and pressed the book and the cash into my hands. David, take this money. Go pay down that loan immediately. This is my money, and it is my decision. Do not feel guilty. Her decisive action left the hall in stunned silence. I held the bank book, tears streaming down my face. My mother had sacrificed everything for me, protected me. Then she turned back to my sisters, her eyes as cold as ashes. As for you two, Jessica and Amanda, I declare here today, from now on, my joy and my sorrow are my own. My life and my death are my own. I will not be a burden to you any longer. The motherly love I have given you all these years, consider my debt to you paid. Go home and never set foot in my house again if all you seek is a handout. I, Margaret Miller, officially disown my two ungrateful daughters. The words disown you echoed like a thunderclap. Jessica and Amanda stood frozen, the blood draining from their faces. They never imagined she would do this in public. The neighbors began to talk openly, their words filled with scorn. What ungrateful children. Serves them right. Greed gets you nothing. Disowned in public, how humiliating. Under the weight of public shame and their mother's unshakable resolve, Jessica and Amanda couldn't take it anymore. They scrambled out of the hall amidst a chorus of contemptuous whispers. The mediation ended in a complete moral victory for my mother and me, but a deep sadness settled in my heart. Our family was broken. The bonds of kinship severed, a terrible price to pay for human greed. After the dramatic public meeting, a tense quiet settled over our lives, but I knew it was just the calm before another storm. My mother was exhausted from her battle and spent most of her days resting. I used the $30,000 she gave me to pay down a chunk of the principal, which significantly eased the interest payments, but the remaining debt was still a mountain for me and Emily to climb. One afternoon, while I was driving for Uber to make extra cash, I got a call from an unknown number. It was Robert, Amanda's husband. He invited me to a coffee shop, saying it was about my future. Though I wanted nothing to do with them, curiosity got the better of me. Robert was dressed in an expensive suit, a stark contrast to my sweaty, disheveled appearance. "David," he began with a salesman's smile, "I'm here to help. I know you're struggling with that debt. I'll lend you $20,000. No interest, pay me back whenever." I was suspicious. "What's the catch?" "There's no such thing as a free lunch, especially from your family." He leaned in, whispering, "It's simple. You just give me that old metal tin of your father's and your mother's notebooks. They're just causing bad blood. You give me the tin, I'll wire you the money." I laughed out loud. So that was it. They wanted to destroy the evidence, my father's letter, my mother's ledgers, so they could later claim she was incompetent and sue for the property. "Robert," I said, my voice cold, "that tin contains my parents' memory and my mother's honor. You think you can buy that for $20,000? I'd rather drive a cab for the rest of my life to pay my debts than sell out my parents. Tell Amanda and Jessica to never even think about touching that box." I stood up and walked away, leaving him fuming. I might be poor and in debt, but I would live with my head held high. Eventually, news of my situation reached Emily's parents. They were retired, respectable people who wanted a stable life for their daughter. They summoned me to their home for a serious talk. "David," Emily's father said gravely, "we admire your devotion to your mother, but we worry for Emily. You're in debt to a loan shark. Your family is in turmoil. Can you truly provide a happy life for her?" I understood their fears, but Emily, seeing my distress, spoke up. "Dad, Mom, I trust David. He got into debt to save his mother, not because he was reckless. A man with that much honor will be a good husband. I am ready to work by his side to pay off every penny." I showed them my detailed financial plan for repaying the debt over 3 years. Seeing my determination and Emily's unwavering support, her parents relented. Their blessing was a solid foundation that gave me the strength to carry on. And then, karma, it seemed, delivered its verdict. 2 months later, Mark, Jessica's husband, was arrested. He was part of a massive cryptocurrency scam. He had mortgaged their house and borrowed heavily to invest, and when the scheme collapsed, he was left with millions in debt. One day, my phone rang. It was Jessica, screaming hysterically, "David, save me! Mark's been arrested! The loan sharks are surrounding my house. They're going to kill us. Please, tell Mom to sell the family house to save me. It's the only way." I was disgusted. Even now, all she could think about was selling the house she had no right to. "Jessica, that house belongs to me now. It's the payment for saving Mom's life. You had no obligation to her then, and we have no obligation to bail you out of your greedy mistakes now." "You're evil," she shrieked. "Give me back the $30,000 Mom gave you. I need it to pay them off." "That money is gone, and even if I had it, I wouldn't give it to you. You made your bed, now lie in it." In her desperation, she did the unthinkable. She gave the debt collectors my address in New York. One evening, thugs were banging on my door, demanding I pay my sister's debt. I had installed a security camera, and with the evidence and a call to the police, they were scared off. I called Jessica one last time. "If you ever involve me or Mom in your mess again," I warned her, "I will sue you for slander and abetting extortion. I have all the proof I need." That was the last I heard from her for a long time. The collectors hounded her relentlessly. She was forced to flee, losing her house and cars. She ended up working as a cleaner in a remote town, a destitute runaway. 2 years have passed. Time has healed many wounds. Emily and I are married, our wedding a simple, happy affair. We've worked tirelessly, and the once insurmountable debt is now a manageable final payment away. We have the title to our condo free and clear. Our small, happy home is our sanctuary. Amanda, terrified by Jessica's fate, had a change of heart. She came to my mother, knelt, and begged for forgiveness. My mother, with her boundless heart, forgave her. Their relationship is not what it once was, but there is peace. As for Jessica, we heard she's working as a janitor in a restaurant up north. Life is hard, but she has learned the value of an honest dollar. She called Mom once, crying, only to apologize. Mom silently sent her a package with some medicine and warm clothes. This afternoon, I brought Emily and our baby boy to visit Mom. The old bungalow has been renovated, bright and clean. Mom was in the yard, sitting and shelling peas, her white hair shining in the sun. When she saw us, her face broke into a radiant smile that smoothed away all the lines of hardship. "Ah, you're here," she said, her voice full of joy. "Come in, come in." I made some lemonade. I looked at my mother, at the sturdy family home, at my wife happily helping in the kitchen, and a profound sense of peace washed over me. We had fought, we had sacrificed, and we had preserved what truly mattered: a mother's love, a son's devotion, and our own self-respect. This house was more than just property. It was a monument to justice, a fortress of love that had weathered the storm of greed and selfishness. And I silently thanked God for giving my mother back to me, for giving me the chance to still say that sacred word, Mom.